everyone. While we're busy recording some fresh new episodes for the Push to Be More podcast, I wanted to bring back an incredible conversation Matt Edmundson had with Ian Finch, CEO of Mando Agency. Ian shares his journey from the early days of scraping by to leading a successful digital agency that partners with big names like JCB and British Red Cross. We dive into the ups and downs of running a business, the importance of just showing up, and how to push through challenges with resilience and determination. Ian's story is packed with insights about creating a sustainable future for your company and his personal mission to be better today than he was yesterday. Whether you're a business leader, an entrepreneur, or someone looking to improve yourself, Ian's wisdom is truly inspiring. So if you're looking for motivation, practical advice, or just some great stories about turning passion into impactful action, this episode is for you.
Welcome to Push to Be More with me, your host, Matt Edmundson, a show that talks about the stuff that makes life work. And to help me do just that, right here at the launch, I thought of no one better than the Right Reverend Ian Finch to get on the podcast with me, my good friend Ian from Mando, about how to create a sustainable future for your company, how when you are better, everything is better. And we're going to be talking about his desire to be better today than he was yesterday. I'm loving this music, by the way. Oh yes. The show notes and transcript from my conversation with Ian are available on our website, pushtobemore.com. On our website, you can also sign up for our newsletter, and each week we will email you these links from the show, the transcripts, all that kind of good stuff, automatically direct to your inbox, totally free, totally amazing. So make sure you go to pushtobemore.com. So, all of that said, let's talk about you, Ian. Ian is the CEO of Mando Agency. CEO is a very posh title, isn't it? Mando focuses on engineering positive change in organizations through specialist product development teams. Ian is also a husband, a dad, a mental health advocate, a big fan of outdoor pursuits, and a yoga devotee. And it's probably fair to say, Finch, a big Liverpool Football Club fan as well.
Indeed.
Welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. And 3 podcasts in, I think you're ready for TV. Like, you've got the X Factor voice. I'm excited. I'm ready for the judges to come out. I'm loving it. This is brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? I used to have on my LinkedIn bio that I was a frustrated Radio 2 DJ wannabe, so I started podcasting instead.
Oh well, I think you're well past Radio 2. I think you're on the the music awards. We got Eurovision coming to Liverpool. Actually,
we have
pretty soon.
Yeah,
I think you just need a handful more of these to go viral, and
that would be awesome, wouldn't it? Yeah. So if you're listening to this, Mr. Eurovision Song Contest people, then both Ian and I will quite happily host together. It'd be quite good fun. So. Good lad. Yeah, no, it's awesome. Thank you for your kind words, by the way. You are way too kind. It's just very kind of you. I've got a really good friend of mine called Tony, actually. He tells me that he always tells me I've got a good face for radio. So it's just one of those.
Wait, what?
So here we are, episode number 1. Thank you for being the guinea pig. And being on the very first show. Yeah, it's great, man. Now, we've done podcasts together before. I've got an e-commerce podcast. You've been on that. And I thought, actually, this one's aimed a bit wider, a bit more at sort of leaders and entrepreneurs and stuff. And I thought you'd be great to talk about this. So let's start off. I said, you're the CEO of Mando. Just tell us a little bit about Mando Agency and what it does.
So, yeah, sure. Mando is a digital agency, but we're a very kind of technology centric and perhaps more like an IT consultancy, and so it's very much managed services, professional services, consultancy services in that digital change space. So we will run your digital estate, optimize it, evolve it, bring in new technologies, do systems integration. So we only have a few programs of work every year in a relatively lightweight customer base. It's just that we do a lot for those customers, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mandates a year for each of those customers. So it's very much in that strategic consultancy and engineering kind of place.
And it's fair to say, I mean, that all sounds, if I'm honest with you, from my point of view, it sounds really impressive. It sounds a bit nightmarish when you're doing that much for one client, right? In one sense, but it's, see, I'm from e-commerce. You don't do that much for clients. You take that money and you ship them products, right? But so it's very different in some respects to what you guys are doing. And I know you've had really long-term successful client relationships because you guys do that super well, right? And you care for people really well. But it's fair to say that on your journey, you didn't always start out as you are right now. I mean, you know, the early days were not like what they are. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been going a long time. I'm 25 years in. As of September, actually. And in the early days, like any startup, you get work really where you can, particularly when you're 21 and you're figuring out what's going on in life as well. So there wasn't this big strategic plan. You know, if I did a startup tomorrow, I'd do it very differently, with a lot more focus. But yeah, we learned our trade. I mean, we set up pre-Google, pre-Amazon, I think. And so in fact it would have been so the web and digital was a wild west, really. Everyone was just kind of figuring it out as we went along, and so it's very a lot of trial and error, and very design centric. Very few rules in those days. It really was kind of, let's experiment, see what happens. Some ways I miss those days because the creativity had a bit more space to breathe, whereas what comes with the evolution of the web and people's expectations is, within that experience space, the need for familiarity and therefore intuition comes to the fore much more. People just want things to work in the same way. That makes sense. If you're using your TV, it's really annoying that the Apple fast forward isn't as good as Netflix is. Why? Just theirs was good. Let's copy that. And so I don't want it to be an experimental fast forward with different types of button combinations. I just want it to be like that because that works. So the challenge is keeping that familiarity and making sure in our world that ultimately we want things to be better, faster, and cheaper for our clients, which means things are easier, more intuitive, and user friendly, and just easy to click and say yes to for their clients. And so there's very prescribable, perhaps is more accurate, route to make things so much more simple from a user's perspective. But that simple is the critical bit, because it's very easy to be simplistic. It's actually quite difficult to be simple. It's actually very complicated to make things simple, because you've got to do so much in the back end. So that's why we're in that space in the engineering, because it's all well and good. It should be like this. My job's done, says the person that's done the diagram. And then there's like 2,000 man days or person days of development to actually configure all the systems to allow that very simple click to happen.
Yeah, no, fair play. So it's you do some great stuff now at Mando, and you've obviously started 25 years ago. So congratulations, by the way, on your 25th year. That's quite impressive. You started out by getting work wherever you could. And it's fair to say now you've got some fairly well-known and significant clients. I don't know if you can mention who they are. I don't want to mention names.
Sure. So the clients, I mean, we're really proud of the client base. And so JCB are a great customer, relatively recent, so the last year or so, but we're getting really well with them, doing some great stuff. We keep British Red Cross ticking over, making sure they can get the donations and performing. Really proud of work we do in utilities, and so when Electricity Northwest or SSE or UU and a load of other three-letter acronyms that I could go. But when storm season happens, people want to know when they're going to get electric back, and they need to be on their mobile because there's no web connection. So making sites performance, scalable, mobile friendly, easy to use. We're very much in that space where we support vulnerable customers, and that's really close to our heart in what we do. And so our work with CAP, for example, Christians Against Poverty, that ticks a lot of boxes on a kind of heart level, that we're helping them address a more sizable market than they can currently address, and working with them to transform their business. I won't go into too much detail, but their target market is the most vulnerable in society. And we're getting out of major poverty. But what's wonderful about CAP particularly is that they don't just fix the fact that you've stumbled into 2,000% interest, horrible loan shark scenario.
Yeah.
There might be other issues why you got there in the first place. And so it's this holistic view. And so when you can help an organization that will benefit society, will transform, and that's probably an extreme example, but we work for University Superannuation Scheme, the biggest pension fund in the country. And they've got 450,000 pensioners who have paid their dues and are worried about a recession and so on. And we create a system where they can get timely information. They can model what their pension's going to look like a year or two from now. And so, really proud of the work and really proud of the clients that we work with.
That's awesome, man. But do you remember then? I mean, there's some pretty big clients. You obviously didn't start off working with the British Red Cross, right? So I'm guessing that there was sort of step. What was the turning point? Do you remember your sort of first major client where you thought, "Goodness me, we're stepping out into a zone here"?
Yeah, there's probably 2 or 3 examples. Was more, but really big ones that come to mind. We're about just coming up to the end of our first year, and we'd picked up like a one-page website here and a bit of a brochureware there, and I did a logo and so on. And then we did our first competitive pitch for the Roy Castle Lung Cancer Foundation when it first opened, and we bust a gut to deliver it. I remember doing 3 all-nighters in a row before the 6 a.m. deadline when Cliff Richard came in on Breakfast News and BBC and clicked go and Internet Explorer 3 and up popped the website on national television. We're like, and it worked. like matchsticks pricking up your eyes and the IT manager faints and we're like, okay, good. But that was a step change deal because, contextually, that was 20% of our revenue that year.
Wow.
And it all came in the end when I hadn't been paid for 3 months.
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know if anyone is old enough to relate to this, but they gave all the assets on a zip disk. And we're like,
oh, wow.
We haven't got a zip drive.
Oh, wow.
So we had to go and buy a zip drive to get the assets. We're like, oh. It was so hand to mouth. But that was our first competitive pitch. It was also a big brand. And so we PR'd the hell out of it. Every time there's a picture of Roy Castle and his trumpet, there's me and Matt, my business partner, at the time going, "Oh, we did the website." And because that was visible, that actually got us noticed not just by potential clients but potential staff, and it was a direct consequence of seeing that. But we then came to contact with our correct director, who then worked with us the next few years. Around that time as well, we got Mersey Television, and again, people need to be old for this, but remember Brookside? Before around Hollyoaks. Well, we did that in Macromedia Flash, if anyone remembers that. We used to have plugins in browsers, and got an interactive BAFTA nomination for it. And then we were set because on a new technology that was experiential with award-winning that had national coverage, then the floodgates start to open. But that then got us into contact with Sony Signosis, who were a neighbor at the time, who we did a very minor website, I think Panzer Tank Elite, that well-known game from 23 years ago. But because of that, we then got into that gaming world of all the product managers knew each other, and we ended up doing Final Fantasy website, and we did stuff for Capcom, had Street Fighter, and we had a whole era. We did loads of media and games. And so I think the key learning really is one unlock in a vertical where you just capture your imagination can transform your business. And we went from, I think we had 2 staff by the time Roy Castle went live. We had 3 to 2. Then by the time we had Brookside live, it was 10. By the time we'd done a media and games, we were 30, and the whole thing happened in kind of 3 years. Then the dot-com bubble burst, and we kind of just ticked over for a bit. I think the other step change came having just kept the lights on during a difficult time, kind of post the recession, just in digital. We developed our technology, and we were working with other agencies, and we were doing the back end, and we kind of had this more balance between design and architecture. And then the next step change deal occurred when we did an e-learning system, and three things happened. One, it's a tour de force in terms of visuals. It was complete state of the art. It was not form-based learning. It was this immersive, almost gamification, edutainment, and all those phrases that came out afterwards. Crucially, though, we partnered with other technology, and the diagnostic engine that sat behind all the learning, we actually had another company produce, and we saw, right, amazing experience design with best of breed technology. There's a win. And actually, in the agency space, we then quite soon after ditched our own technology and started working with bigger systems. And with bigger systems came bigger clients, because the client didn't want Mando at the time, 30 odd people in Liverpool's CMS that had 100 clients. They wanted to go to market and go, we want X or Y or Z platform, and then that, because that's safe and it's Microsoft backed, and so, but a client that wants that kind of safety with that kind of budget has budget for other things as well. And it took us away from some of the smaller work, and we got into this kind of more business critical engineering space. And it was that turning point of partnering with technology that then opened the floodgates to work with United Utilities, which we still do 14 years later, Vodafone, Jones Lang LaSalle, Bentley, and Talk. So it's just all the brands came from a result of working that technology, and it took us up a level. And that core learning continues to this day. You know, you have best of breed tech with great visual design experience, and but then you need the systems. And so in our world, people who can do the tech and the systems are massive 50,000 person offshores or systems integrators, and their design maybe is a bit lacking and the team's a bit disparate because they're all over the world. And the people that are integrating quite boutique don't typically have the processes to be able to cope with the support element. And so we think, well, there's a unique point of differentiation for us, that within a certain mid-market boundary, the fact that onshore we can keep systems running with bulletproof ISO, ITIL driven processes. You know everyone who's working on your account, and it's going to be experientially and strategically driven. That kind of key principles all under one roof is really compelling, because it makes things better, faster, cheaper, and you can really grow with a customer over a period of time. The customers really appreciate that.
No, and that's obviously what you guys have done very well over the last few years, right? And what you continue to do well in. But I mean, I know you, Ian, so I know the answer to this question. But it's, I mean, that journey, as exciting as it sounds, it's fair to say has not been all sunshine and rainbows, has it? There's been a few trips along the way, a few challenges. So we call this podcast Push to Be More, right? So question to you then is, where have you learnt, or where have you had to push and that's had a big, massive impact on you, sort of challenges you've had to overcome?
Yeah, well, two or three come to mind. Firstly, I mentioned it before, when the dot-com bubble burst. It was followed quickly by 9/11. And 5 months earlier, we'd raised $500,000 and moved into 9,000 square foot of office space, because we're utterly convinced we're going to be 100 staff within a year, which then didn't happen. So it's like, you know, I think pivot is a fully overused word in 2022, but man, the pivot. We're like, right, okay. In Clerkenwell alone in London, 5,000 people got made redundant. And they all went, oh, what's the most interesting stuff? Media and games. What are we doing? Media and games, 200 miles away in Liverpool. We had staring into an empty office. It was never going to be filled. And we're like, okay, now what we're going to do? So, you know, that's when we really doubled down on the technical partner side of things to ad agencies. And the spend went from digital to ad agency, because it was tried and trusted from a strategic perspective, but they didn't know how to do the tech. And so we're like, well, let's concentrate on that, and, you know, just study the shit. We need some new markets, because media and games isn't going to do it. Sublet the space, you know, all those kind of things, you know, which we did, and then, but we're not as close to the customers. And then the customers which we had, you know, with the greatest respect, if I did one 20-page accountant website, I did 50, and white with a blue logo with the differentiation point of personal professional service and excellence is our value. And
Doesn't
we turn
excite
the
you,
lights.
no.
We turn the lights on. I remember going on holiday and coming back and saying to the business partner at the time, I was like, I'm so bored. I'm so bored working. And I think our staff are, because working on projects we don't like, for money we can't afford to live on, for people who don't particularly get on with, work we don't believe in. This is I'm still in my 20s. This is too, no. My business partner felt, I feel the same way. Actually, we're stuck in a rut. And so we had this real kind of moment like, right, okay, it was 3 or 4 years ago. Shake it off, man. Let's just get that spirit back. What is it we love? It was a design, and it was a problem solving, and let's get in charge of it again. Let's really go for what we want, or forget it. Go big or go home, you might call it. And by getting that kind of gritty about it, people who were with you were loving it, and people that had died inside themselves were like, nah, I'm done. And actually, I know we shrunk by a third in the next 6 months. But we did only kind of lose one person proactively. The rest kind of moved on. It was just from the sheer shake of us getting a grip of the business again. And the last person to move was a salesperson, which is an interesting choice when you're shrinking to get rid of sales. But actually, we needed to change the strategy. And so I actually took over sales. And the key principle was get the people with a problem in front of the people who have an ability to solve problems, or the people that need to work with the people who do the work. And so I'm going to treat sales more like project management and facilitation rather than, in inverted commas, peddling anything. And that worked a treat. That really, really worked. And it kind of changed the way we looked at business development as we solve problems. We're consultants. We don't sell, we don't business develop, and then these guys build. We're consultants. And I still say that now, and we're still doing training on it now, because it's one of those kind of never-ending journeys of just becoming more and more consultative. But that was a real change that happened then. The next one I mentioned before, where we started partnering with technology. And then coming back to more the present day, there's probably two key things that have happened. One is we went quite vertical in terms of our market proposition, particularly around regulated industries. And we do really well when we're serving a known customer base, making it optimal for that customer base and reducing the cost to serve those customers, which is very much for the IT consultancy cost reduction kind of side of what we do ultimately. Or we have much more stringent metrics than this, but ultimately, if you came down to it, we increase customer satisfaction, we reduce the cost to serve those customers. That's uniform across the customer base, is the most baseline metrics. And being really clear about a proposition helps you qualification, helps you bids, it gets you a homogeneity within your types of customers you work with. It allows you to build intellectual property and just build that competence. And then probably the last real pertinent thing is we will still have a kind of good quarter, not so good quarter, or a great year and an okay year, and getting off that, I wouldn't call it a roller coaster, maybe a sine wave, and going, how can we get that consistent growth? And that's very difficult in our space, and I think generally in consultancy space, because when you're project orientated, because you put this big picture together, you win the project and you do the project, and then everyone has kind of feeling, and then the can last a few months no matter what. So you always get this drop, and you can put a support agreement in place, but really changing our marketing and our value proposition and our internal training as well. It's quite a seismic overhaul of the agency to become much more aligned to customers that want to go on a journey and continuously improve and continually invest in their platform, their digital estate, and become ever more digital first. That's when you can really build momentum, really get under the skin of an organization, and be able to project further out what your revenue forecasts are. This year, for the first time in 25, I know what we're going to do by March, year end. I know 60% of what we're going to do by the following March. And that's a paradigm shift for us in terms of our history.
So it's fair. I mean, there's a lot there, right? I mean, there's a lot of learning and a lot of challenges that you've faced and that you've worked through, and some of them you've mentioned, and now you're sort of faced with a sort of this paradigm shift. Originally, we were going to call this podcast "When We Get Retainers or Die Trying" or something like that. We've subsequently changed the title. So is that sort of? It's almost like you've stripped the business back to these fundamental basics of when you were up in that sort of little office on London Road, right?
Yeah. So we've evolved considerably, and in terms of that particular initiative, you have to have listened to a 50 Cent album to even get the reference. In fairness, like "Get Rich or Die Trying," but "Get Retainers or Die Trying." So it didn't translate that well. I remember people looking at a white middle-aged IT guy going, "It's okay, right? We're thinking a different name." But you get my drift. We are going to do this come hell or high water. We're not going to play around with it. And one of the things that I have learned too slowly, is sometimes change is so big and so fundamental. Not everyone's going to come with you, and that has to be okay. And if you do it right, it can be a really empowering experience. I once had an exit interview with someone that went, "I really, really see clearly where you're going, and I don't want any of it, so it's time to leave." I'm like, that's the best exit interview ever, because it means I've been really clear. It means you've been really intentional, and we can just shake each other's hand and wish each other well. So I was really proud of that, because we've communicated this really well. This has not just been a slow deterioration. We're going here for these reasons, and here's what was going to happen. This is what it means for everyone. And people go, brilliant. Or people go, not for me. I think that's great. And
that's remarkable, really.
Yeah. And it hasn't always been like that. So,
really.
So what's one of the learning points there is that you just cannot over communicate stuff. And yet, so often you think, I've emailed about it, I've done a company stand-up, I've put a blog out on the company intranet, I've talked to all the key people, and then someone goes, "Oh, we're doing that now," and you're just like, "What?" Well, I could just let my shoulders slump and just cry over my cup of tea about how no one understands me, or I could go, "This is the job." I may feel like I've done a song and dance and an email and an expressive mime about it and a video and talk to everybody individually at the water cooler about how, and they still don't get it. And actually, it happens so often and happens so repeatedly over history. And we work with customers who are brilliant, and the left arm doesn't know what the right arm's doing. You go, this is like a human issue.
Yeah.
So I could probably give myself a break. I could probably be a bit more gracious to everyone else and go, we just go again.
Yeah.
We just go again, and in terms of, I think, where you're coming from in this podcast series is, I don't think there's any greater real headline than "we go again."
Yeah. It's true, right? We get up, we dust ourselves down, and we keep going, right?
Yeah, and because some stuff's worked really well, some stuff's worked a bit and could be optimized. Some stuff's just a nightmare, in which case you go, he got the light bulb wrong 1,000 times before he got it right, and he didn't stop. There's stuff you can own around strategy, and we tried something that didn't work, and that's okay. Learning there is fail forward and fail fast.
Yeah.
Just don't keep failing.
Yeah.
Doing it once and it works fine, tweak it. Do it twice and it didn't work. Do it 3 times. It's like, are you kidding me? We just got to learn this now and tweak. And it doesn't always need to be a wholesale change. It needs to be a tweak, and even that needs explaining, because I think the vast majority of humans live in an either-or world. We do this or we do that.
Right.
But in business transformation and change, in digital specifically, we do this and we do that. So let's live in an and world, not in an either-or world. And everything's just a micro adjustment. It's hilarious when people want to flick to an agile delivery methodology rather than an old school waterfall methodology. And they go, well, let's do agile and let's spec it to death before we start because we want to get agile right. No.
Missed the point.
Let's start and iterate as we go along and have a cadence where we go, whatever it is, every 2 weeks. Right, here's where we are. What have we learned? What are we going to do next? All right, here's where we are. And but that takes time and training, because I think that from the schooling system up where you just get it right, have some incompetence, do the thing, get marked for it. Okay, now go on to the next assessment. But in the real world, you go try and fail. The creative process is endlessly trying and failing. You write a song, it's like, that chorus doesn't work, that chorus doesn't work, that chorus, no, the chorus works. But you don't stop trying, and it's not like you've done a completely different song. Even if it ends up differently, you've iterated your way there.
It's
and so it
interesting
is
you
with
say
life.
that. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think one of the things that you do well when you're a kid is you fail well. You think about a kid learning to walk; they fail well. They don't even think about it. There's no ego involved. There's no self-esteem issues when they fall over. There might be a slight frustration, but they figure it out. And I think one thing that school does is it teaches you to fail badly. And we carry that through, right? And one of the things that I've noticed with entrepreneurs like yourself is your ability to take failure almost within your stride and not worry about it, and just relentlessly keep going, which I think is peculiar in a lot of ways to entrepreneurs and leaders.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And it's we did some training about 20 months ago. We got some sales training in, and then COVID hit, and we turned the sales training into comms training more generally. How to use a screen, how to set an agenda that finishes 5 minutes before the hour, because they've no doubt got another video call that starts at the hour, and really, really basic stuff like that. But then when you actually get into the concept of agenda setting, and you get a bit further into it, you go, well, I can set an agenda, but the word agenda, that plays out in multiple different ways. And actually, people are coming to that agenda with an agenda.
Yeah.
And their agenda could be driven by an argument at breakfast with their spouse or some other trigger. But maybe agenda is a bit of a harsh word, but it led to us going, people don't contribute in these meetings because they're scared to look bad. Why are they scared to look bad? Because it's part of failure. People are scared to fail. Well, why are they scared to fail? I don't think we've got a culture. I think we embrace failure. You can say it in, but if people don't feel it, I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's do a session on handling failure. And it's really interesting what you say about the entrepreneur thing, because I was on that session, like the rest of people in the business. I was like, with the greatest respect, no, well, of course, no. And there's 50 people going, oh, it's life-changing. Oh, I feel so well, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Right. I've got some learning to do here, because I live in this permanent place of failure, iterate, success, iterate a bit more. Now it's a failure. And everything I do is public.
Yeah.
Every failure I make, 50 people go, yeah, you failed on it.
Well done, boss. Yeah.
Because entrepreneurs fail in public, because particularly when you've got staff, you don't end up doing the work. Other people do. And so the decisions you make about a direction in business, other people are doing it, but it's still you that's failed to deliver to that client. Or the culture's not worked, or you get staff feedback and it's like, oh, you think that? Oh, you won't be needing this anymore. But you can't you just have to go, all feedback is valuable. All feedback is meant well, unless it's not, in which case let's put a bit of discernment in. But your assumption is it's meant well for the, I ask for it and I get it back. I can't. You have to see failure. You have to see a challenge and your failings. And when you run a business, well, you see all the bits you hate about your character played out culturally as well as the good bits you love as well.
And there's no hiding, right? There's no hiding.
Oh, and it's the most exhilarating and terrifying experience, probably outside of your kids up where the same thing happens. You just live in this world of constantly failing publicly and accepting responsibility for it. And then you forget that most people don't. Most people learn at school how to be great at generic stuff, GCSEs, then focus a little bit more at A-levels and focus a bit more at university, then do a job that matches their university training and then get really good at a job. So we live in a place where actually failure is getting eliminated all the time. And then the nutty founder entrepreneur comes along and goes, hey, let's experiment. Let's try something we've never done. And
freaks everybody out.
Yeah, not strictly true. Because, I'm not like, let's have experimental code practices that maybe aren't as secure as others. No, let's learn the basics, but can we optimize that? Do we need to build ourselves? Could we partner with technology? And you're constantly nibbling around the edges to try and it's your job to go, can we do that quicker? Yeah, really, is that actually true? I found it, like the classic thing. I've just searched on Google for 30 seconds and I found this, and you've done it for 30 years, but what about this? Now, like, I hate you, but then occasionally you're like, oh yeah, you're right, I didn't see that. And you're like, you didn't see it because you're utterly brilliant at what you do. And actually, I saw it because I'm completely ignorant of what you do, and therefore I'm not as closed-minded. And so I've learned to the older I get, the more stupid questions I ask.
Yeah, that's true.
The more forgive me.
And they're intentional.
Because the better you get without people stretching you, the closer the blinkers are, because you're going deeper. And I think part of the joy and part of the job, but also the part you've really got to handle culturally, is constantly going, is there something else? Is there something else? Is there something else? Have we thought about, without winding everyone else up and dismissing what their value is. And so we're constantly trying to get that tension between best practice and is there more?
Well, there's a lot there, right? And I couldn't agree more. I think it's a really sort of fascinating trait that business leaders have, this constant drive. And have you ever read the book Black Box Thinking?
I have not. No.
So this is a book I think everybody should read. It's Black Box Thinking by a guy called Matthew. I can't even remember his name. Matthew Syed, I think it is. And he in the book he talks about how to deal with failure, and he contrasts the US medical industry, which cannot abide the word failure because it means lawsuit, with the airline industry, which goes failure, black box. That means learning something so we don't crash in, again, right? Yeah. And he contrasts these two things, and it's fascinating and very insightful. So I highly recommend it.
Okay, no, I'd definitely read that.
Yeah, check it out. So business aside, because business sounds like fun and full on and a pain in the arse all at the same time, which is probably the testimony of most business leaders, right?
All of the above, yeah. But I think particularly in digital, it's, it's 25, well, no, it's not, is it? It's 30 to 35 years old since non-linear hyperlink got created, which compared to architecture, which is several thousand year old, there's a few more standards, and so while that makes it challenging, it also means every day is different and it's exciting, and we can evolve further, but the human issues don't change. But yeah, it's a challenge, which I'm sure the next question will be, how do you handle that in the rest of life as well?
We could go that route. What do you do to sort of stay on top? What do you do to charge your batteries? What do you do to be the push to be more? It's that kind of what fills your tank kind of thing. I'm curious to know how you recharge Finch.
Yeah, that's been a very topical part of my life. over the last couple of years, because I think the older you get, maybe it's me. I think it's more generic though. The things just start hurting in your 40s. I think particularly if you've worked in IT like this, getting more and more stress and, cramming over a desk and your hamstrings are getting tight. And but I think you end up carrying stuff, and adrenaline and energy, maybe in my case, nervous energy in your 20s and 30s carries you through. And I remember getting a bit of advice years ago going, well, that's all well and good, but once you're doing 25 hours work in every 24-hour period, where's that go?
Yeah.
You can't just keep doing more. And I think there's periods in life, I think particularly in your 20s, where you're just accumulating knowledge and actually you're not as good because you haven't done it before. And so things take longer. And then, your 30s, you start getting a better sense where you're, and then in your 40s, you realize actually less is way more. and I've actually allowed myself to see part of my job is thinking clearly. And ridiculously, with the benefit of hindsight, for years I thought that, well, the job is doing.
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking, frankly, while driving and taking dictaphone notes, reading on the toilet, dictaphoning on the toilet, because that's where the ideas come, thinking on holidays. And actually, I've allowed myself to spend some of my working day thinking. Part of that is because I trust myself more. My thinking's good. There's some competence. Part of it is a natural part of, I don't do the work anymore. I delegate, manage, and lead and direct. So I think creating space for thinking's important, and it needs to be a bit more holistic than that, And so some of the work I did kind of really condensed life down into what we call 4 rooms. And so there's the emotional room, the physical room, the mental room, and the spiritual room. And actually really dwelling on where am I at in those 4 paradigms was really interesting. So mentally, I'm continually challenged. I'm always firing, and actually I'm always learning something new. So I'm probably in a pretty good place mentally. I make good decisions, and my job is making decisions, and well practiced. Physically, I was a bit binge and purge. My weight can shift by a couple of stone very easily based on biscuits.
Sorry, just to say, if you're listening outside of the UK, a stone is a lot. It's like what
is it? Is it
kilos?
Like 7 or 8 kilograms?
Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, my weight can shift by 15 kilograms quite easily in a matter of months. And so why is that? And my emotional room, I realized, and I think this perhaps comes from a lot of stuff we talked about. Professionally, it's always been about what's next, how can we improve, what's next, how can we improve. Oh, that was disappointing. Shake off disappointment, how can we improve, how can we improve? And that has an effect. Maybe I'm this chicken egg. Have I been trained professionally because I've always had to lead people for 25 years? Am I that way inclined anyway?
Yeah.
Bit anxiously driven.
Who knows?
Bit both, probably. But what happened emotionally is, for me, that room is only happy. There's yellow balls with smiley faces on everywhere in that room, and there's no sadness there. And that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Because basically I realized I suppressed anything negative, any disappointment, and just concentrate on what's next. And which then leads to a spiritual room where it was described as, what's your relationship to yourself? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so in the last 18 months particularly, I've really gone, I need to check in more, actually, and allow myself to be sad, allow myself to be disappointed, and allow myself to acknowledge that other people, their actions I've allowed to hurt me, and but we need to talk about it. You didn't do this, but I'm going to own it all. We need to talk about it. But it all starts with checking in, and then again, you need space to do that. And so for me, the way I do that is get in nature. So I go for a walk each day, Sometimes I listen to a podcast or read it or listen to a book. I'm much better at listening to books than I am reading them. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Try and do yoga 4-5 times a week and do some kind of physical activity. I love, hiking. Try and do something mentally, physically, and check in emotionally and spiritually on a daily basis. And it's funny, since doing that, I sleep more, I work less, and I'm adding more value, and I'm more productive on a daily basis, which, man, if I could have really grasped that
in your 20s, how different would life be?
Could you imagine meeting yourself 20 years ahead of time and going, no, seriously, do this. And
But
if you were not so black and white and so ego-driven in your 20s that you'd actually listen to start with.
I was going to say, you'd meet your 26. If I met my 20-year-old self, my 20-year-old self would not listen to my 40-year-old self. Yeah, it'd just be like, get behind me, Satan. What's wrong with you? Do you know what I mean? It'd be that kind of response.
You old, tired man, is this what you've become? You've just talked about home furnishings. Why have you talked about home furnishings? You garden? What?
So do you feel, right, with this sort of new approach where you're creating space to think and to be and to check in, do you feel a sense of guilt because you're not doing?
Yes. And
so how do you deal with that?
So guilt needs to be investigated because where is it coming from? What is making me have to be the first in and the last to leave? What is making, because some of it's personal responsibility and trying to lead from the front and do the right thing, but I think I realized there's other stuff driving it. And for me, I was like, I just pathologically have to fix everything and everyone and take personal responsibility for everything. Taking a step back and talk to a few people, that's not normal. so where does that come from? Because actually, this kind of nervous energy, this guilt, it's just always there. It's like, I've got this thing, I just need to do better and strive. And why do I have to fix everything and everyone? Why can't I because actually what that does in business or life generally is it creates learned helplessness because people don't have to answer their own problems or self-regulate because Finch is doing it for them the whole time. It's not helpful. Why? And so you go really deep and you go, all right, there's maybe a few childhood experiences that meant this is how I felt love. This is what behavior was rewarded or what felt like it worked. And and I talked about suppression earlier, and most things get nailed quite early on. You realize even with brilliant parents and a great home life and everything else, it's just certain things between your personality and your environment. And so I think being aware and being intentional is huge. And then when you are aware, going, okay, why does this feel more urgent to me than anyone else? Oh, because we have no money to pay the wages next week. Okay, fine, that's a normal level of urgency. But actually, no, there's something driving this. And actually, the big shift to me was I was always going to feel guilty working less unless I shifted to a value-based mindset rather than a pounds per square inch of effort per second mindset, and actually really tracking the value I bring to a conversation by planning it for 10 more minutes rather than winging it because I've been doing something else for 10 minutes and experimenting, really testing and iterating, failing forward, going, what if I didn't have to work harder, longer and more intensely than everyone else? What if I could trust myself that the value I bring is actually better now than it was then? And actually, particularly with a comms lens, I mean, that was the next phase, really, is like, I know the value's good, but I'm not landing this.
Yeah.
And so actually, I need to take more time to land it. And so being a bit more considered and just losing some of that kind of entrepreneurial energy. What got you here won't get you there. You do have to operate and iterate. And I think that tipping point of being less driven, maybe less guilt driven, where that my sense of delivered value, or even perhaps value of myself, comes from effort and more to insight and direction and setting other people up for success. And there's other things like it doesn't half help when you pay people better and there's bonuses and everything else, because some of that goes away. But so there's practical things as well. But I think it's much more on a kind of personal level of giving yourself a break and trusting, and seeing the value you're giving, and that's been massive.
That sounds like quite a journey. I mean, a heck of a journey that you've been on there. And so, thinking forward a little bit, if I think about the more section, push to be more, it's like, so you've grown. You've 25 years. You've had all these challenges. You've learned over the last 18 months maybe to create space to think and how to deal with the guilt and how to give people, the space to shine, and you bring your value. So what does that mean for the future? What are you hoping to see more of grow into over the next few years?
Yeah, so we're on a journey, which this whole year, 2022, was about some stuff we changed about our commercial model to be add more value to customers, but also protect ourselves a bit more and get more of an even keel over our revenue and our year-on-year growth. This whole year has been about proving it out, and so far it's been really successful. Revenue's up, profits up, best year so far, so good. We want to test that it's not just another good year followed by a fallow year.
Yeah.
And the ultimate test will be doing that going into a recession. So probably next year is going to be more of the same.
Yeah.
In terms of, our internal phrases, prove it again. Whether it needs to be proved for a full year, or whether, first quarter in next financial year, we've got the whole year nailed, in which case we go, it's worked. But then the idea is that once we've proved the commercial model, we'll scale the commercial model and our specialisms as is. Just try and, throw some time, resource, energy, some money, and a bit more ambition, a bit more drive to kind of grow the top line once we're certain that the bottom line is going to remain like a consistent margin.
Yeah.
Once we've scaled it, which we expect to be organic, even if there's some investment to do that. Then the journey after that will be to scale us, because I think once we've really kind of proved that what we do is vital, it works, people love it, we're serving them well, we scaled the business, then the next phase would be scale us. And that would be where we would look to acquire some new competencies to do a broader, more complementary set. So, and there'll be decisions to make. Right now we're growing organically a data and insight team. When we scale it might be quicker to just buy a data and insight team, bring them in, and that would kind of lend itself to the scale us world. Or it could be that there's a mix and match. The data and insight grows and UX grows, but actually we've got this huge commerce opportunity. While we nod to that and we do my accounts and e-business, pure play B2C commerce is not necessarily part of our remit currently, but is part of our tech and is increasingly part of our digital estates for our clients. And so, let's buy a commerce outfit, and then we'll get their clients, we'll get their competency, and then instead of having to grow it organically over a couple of years, we can jump forward. It's like a first 100 days integration job rather than a 2 year. So prove it, scale us. That's, and to do that, in terms of coming back to the core of this chat, is I need space to flip from, we introduced me as CEO. I'm still doing quite a bit of MDing, really, but that real shift to pure strategic level is happening, but I'm still in the weeds and bits. But we get to a place where we're growing at scale, and I'm growing a team that can cope with scale, like a growth officer and so on. And particularly when it comes to an acquisition journey, which might involve partners and finales, I need to focus on that. So and that needs space and time,
Yeah.
and meeting quite a lot of people. And so it's actually quite business critical that I do keep creating that space. And so I'm feeling really confident in a minute, but all the hallmarks are there, that we get the system right and setting people up for success, that will continue.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That sounds great, doesn't it? And it's one of those things where, when your business works really well, when you're not involved in the detail, that's a really good thing. But it's also, if you're marginally insecure, it's going to be a really really painful thing to sort of deal with, right? And so that's really cool, man. And I hope that sort of all pays off. So let me ask you one of my final questions, right? As you know, this show is sponsored by Aurea Media, which specializes in helping folks like your good self set up and run their own podcast. So I want you to do an imaginary exercise for me. You've got your own podcast, fincheschats.com, and out of the people who have
the right Reverend Finch's Chats.
Yeah, the Right Reverend Finch's Chats. Out of the people who have impacted your life, right? Whether it's family, friends, authors, movie star, I don't know. Who are your sort of top guests that you would like? I really want to get you on the show and say thank you. Who would they be and why?
Oh wow, okay. So Steve Bartlett might have already done all of this, bless him. But in terms of, I think in over the recent 18 months, I'd love to talk to Eckhart Tolle, who's the author of The Power of Now.
Okay.
And he's very much about being in the present moment. And when you're in a present moment, you have to be incredibly aware to be that, because most of us flick from the past to the future. And when you're in a present moment, that's when you can really engage with someone else, see their true self, be completely aware of anything that's going on in you. But his story is fascinating in that, fairly dysfunctional growing up period. And then he ended up in a place that was quite suicidal, and he had a moment ago, I don't think it needs to be like this. And actually took himself off the grid, and I think went and studied in Buddhist monasteries and so on. But I don't think he's a Buddhist. For me, he's a father of mindfulness. But that journey and understanding his experience and his unlocks with people, I'd be quite fascinated with that. And I'm particularly interested, but that has nothing to do with technology, because that's actually my thing. And I think I said this the last time we met, is that this is the first time in human history where technology is not a limitation. People are. Technology can do anything you want it to do within reason now. But changing people is constantly the process of digging what's driving that. And I've hopefully been quite honest about being aware of myself, but you're constantly, what's the agenda? What's really making you ask that question? I have a values violation when it's really clear, when a client, or potential client, should I say, wants to look good rather than be good. And I have like a massive reaction to that. But then part of that is like, why am I judging them like that? They might be in a political context where you can't afford to think of anything but looking good, because that's, and they're fighting their own battles. And actually, maybe I could bring some more grace into this situation. What can I learn from this? But technology, business leaders, no one in my recent experience is quite unlocked that nature of awareness and being totally aware of what's going on, and when someone's being conscious and not, and how you're responding to it, for Eckhart Tolle. It'd just be fascinating talking to him.
Yeah. Well, when he comes on as a guest to your podcast, I will definitely listen to the episode. Absolutely. Mate, you've been an absolute legend. If people want to reach out to you, if people want to get hold of you, we said earlier, didn't we, that Mando engineers positive change. So if people need help with IT systems, if you're an agency who wants to do some kind of strategic partnership with you guys, I know you do that on the IT 100%. Side, right?
Yeah, no, partnership's really, really key. Yeah, we often work with, typically with people who are maybe in a consultancy space or that front end brand space, but they need a a technology partner that gets it, but can work hand in glove with them, who's onshore, that we can work in partnership. And so that's a massive outcome, as well as people that are going for digital change and need some support, not just on the technical side, but kind of translating that to allowing marketing and IT to play nicely together.
Sounds ideal. Sounds lush. How do people reach you then if they want to engage with such activities?
So you can contact me via our website, Mando Agency, or indeed email me, ian.finch@mando.agency.
Very good. Are you on LinkedIn?
I am, and I can't actually remember I think it's Ian David Finch on LinkedIn, because I think, how dare it, but Ian Finch had already gone. So yeah, I think I'm in Ian David. But you can search Ian Finch Mando on LinkedIn, and you'll come up. I answer those twice a day as well.
Oh, do you? I'm still trying to get into that daily habit of doing LinkedIn. I'm not very good. It's just one of those things. So we will obviously link to Ian to Mando and to his link in the show notes. So,
sorry, Matt. There's one other thing actually.
Yeah.
I do a lot more of my kind of mindfulness and kind of outdoor pursuits kind of stuff on Instagram as well, so people can find me Ian Finch on Instagram too.
Where you do some reels as well, right?
Yeah, I was inspired by you. I was like, I haven't quite got the kind of like the statements and the little insight bits, but they're coming. But yeah, I'm liking putting together my travel reels. Yeah. It's good fun.
And I'm very envious when you get up in the hills. I keep meaning to call you and say, next time you go, give me a call, you bugger.
All right, well, I will. I'll give you a shout.
Yeah. Sure. Let me know. Well, thanks for coming on. But honestly, I love doing podcasts with you. You're an absolute legend. Always enjoy the conversation. So thank you very, very, very much. Be sure to follow Push to Be More podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, because this is just the beginning. And what a beginning it was. Fantastic conversation to launch the show. We've got lots of conversations lined up with some incredible people, and I definitely don't want you to miss any of them. And in case no one has told you yet today, let me do it now. You are awesome. Absolutely. It's just a burden we all have to bear. Finch has to bear it. I have to bear it. You've got to bear it too. Theme music is by Josh Edmundson. And as I mentioned, if you'd like to read the transcript and show notes, head over to Push to Be More, where you can also sign up for our newsletter. So that's it from me. That's it from Ian. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week wherever you are. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.